Raphael Warnock, host of Life Full Circle Radio. And so we've been working on a whole lot of stuff here today, but we are ready to rock. A lot going on this week. We started off the week at our production meeting. We got to talk about Dion because y'all just cannot get tired of talking about Dion and his move and leaving Jackson State and how he don't care about HBCUs and he ain't SWAC and blah, 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 blah. Then Tuesday came around and it was the big vote, and looks like the werewolf / vampire Herschel Walker, he can go on back to Texas now. We good, you know, he gone. Reverend Warnock has won that race, and so we're gonna keep it moving. And then today, Brittney Griner, she is on her way home, and you know, most people are happy about that, but you know, most people ain't everybody, so you know, it is what it is. All right, so let's get into this thing. What's up?
What's up? What's going on?
What's up? All right, so anyway.
We all, because we know that song.
A lot of people are like, yo, if they don't stop starting off, that's my high energy, the way I start this thing, the way I get it going. So anyway, so anyway, for some
really funny.
What?
That'll make you laugh really hard.
What?
So this morning, or the other day, I bought some of the gel for your edges, and it was black gel or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll just use this. It's fine or whatever.
Yeah.
I go running today with the babies in the stroller. I start to sweat. I look like Rudy Giuliani. Like all the black gel. All this black gel is now streaming down my face. Thank God for a black woman was like, do you have your sweat towel? I was like, yeah. She's like, it looks like your hair color's coming out. I was like, oh my God.
She's trying to act like she ain't getting old with the rest of us. You know, the super producer is hey, it is what it is. All right, so anyway, hey, we're trying out something today. We're simulcasting on Clubhouse. And so if you find me on Clubhouse, Miguel Lloyd Inc., you'll see, and you can, if you're driving, you want to listen to that, or if you want to come over here, you're on Clubhouse, you find us, come on over here to YouTube. But we're also on Facebook, and we're on a little bit of different places. So anyway, this was a big week, real big week. Yeah. As we talk about, I just got tired. So everybody talking about Dion, and Dion sold out and blah. I'm so tired of black folks calling everybody sellouts as soon as they do something you don't agree with. And so Dion was so-called a sellout today because he decided he wanted to go to the University of Colorado and he wanted to go somewhere that has some resources. And so here we go. So then in addition to that, thank the Lord. It's so funny. By Tuesday night, I don't know about you, everybody outside of Georgia was sweating Tuesday night. I was asleep by 9:30.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. That's how I felt. I was like, oh, thank the Lord.
But I'm saying, have y'all not been paying attention? If y'all have been paying attention for the last few cycles, here's how Georgia works. And I'm just going to break it down for people who are not in Georgia. As long as a Democrat is within even or 1 or 2 points by 9 o'clock, they're in good shape. Because all those little itty bitty counties, the state of Georgia has 159 counties, 159. If you look at the electoral map, most of that stuff is red. But most of those little counties, they got 30,000 over here, 100,000 people over there. All of us in the state of Georgia, we live in Atlanta, we live in Columbus, we live in Savannah, we live in these, and those counties are going to come in.
In the metro areas.
Yeah.
Y'all, Atlanta is not Georgia. We always think, oh, Atlanta got it. That's one city. Yes, all of the Negroes moved to one place, but all the white folks own land and property in these small counties. But
and it's black folks in other counties. Don't get me wrong. There's black folks in other counties outside of Atlanta. But like where we live in Henry County is a little bit south of Atlanta. We say we're in Atlanta, but we kind of in Atlanta. So even our county, 60% Democratic. Clayton County, which is right north of us, they're at about 70. When you get closer to the city, DeKalb County was like 87% Democrat. Fulton County, about the same, 75, 80% Democrat. Cobb County, Gwinnett County, all these counties is right around the metro. And so when it was only within 1 or 2 points at 9:30, those counties hadn't come in. I was like, man, cut this mess off. I'm going to sleep. My mother called me 11:30. Me and Trey was rolling over like, Ma, it's good. We already knew. We sleep. Bye. Love you. To see you tomorrow.
I think a lot of people who had voted for Herschel the first time, it almost like they changed their mind the second time. Not everybody, but a couple people were like, no, I'm good. I'm okay.
They stayed home. The lieutenant governor of Georgia was on CNN sitting in, and he was basically like, Herschel Walker's, paraphrase, Herschel Walker's basically the worst candidate we could have ever put up there. Don't know why he's up there. He's just
Absolutely. I have never, I always make this joke. They could have had a Mr. Potato Head doll. They could have had a sock puppet. Hell, they could have me or you. I'm running for governor. I don't know nothing about Georgia, but I can do it. Hey, they could have had that. And it just, he was awful.
And then his concession speech,
backtracking.
was pathetic. He got up there. I don't think he can spell concession, but he got up there and he started to talk, and he mumbled and he bumbled. And then while he was doing that, his son was tweeting and calling him everything but the son of God. Yeah.
His son made it worse by 1,000%, but his son kind of was on his side. His son's Republican. His son is also super gay.
Right.
I say that for a reason. Super gay.
Which is different than from kind of gay. Right.
Huh?
Which is different than kind of gay. He's super gay. Okay.
Oh, I mean, he's, yes, queen. Like, I mean, people who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about.
I'm just picking. I know the difference.
We're like, but he's anti pride celebrations. He thinks
I'm not even gonna fix my brain and try to figure that piece out. That's not my community.
Let's move on. We got a short amount of time and a lot to talk about, and we go until 9:30. If y'all see me start taking my makeup off at 9 o'clock, it's fine. It's okay.
So here's the thing. So as everything was coming down, we had to going back to Dion. Y'all been on this Dion thing all week. If it wasn't for the fact that Brittney Griner got let go today, y'all would still be talking about Dion everywhere. So I have a little bit of history. I worked, at Norfolk State doing the broadcast, and I was very tied in with the athletic department. I understand this stuff. When people who have no idea what they're talking about, they start getting mad about the situation. I'm just like, guys, y'all don't know what you're talking about. Just let it go. This is not your lane, but they won't. So I pulled up a few stats. I want you guys, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, about why, we need to stop looking at HBCUs and Power Fives and saying it's like it's one leap, it's one step. It's not. It's a huge gap between the best, most profitable HBCU and the worst school in a Power Five conference. The difference in money is not even close. And so we're going to talk about that. But today, let's dig into real quick before we get into how what. Brittney Griner, and thank God that Brittney Griner is coming home. She's going to make it home before the holidays. And even idiots out here even messed that up. So let's talk about Brittney Griner.
So yeah, Brittney Griner was actually, she should be in the air right now.
I hope she's
flying
home by now. She's been flying all day.
She hasn't already been actually landed. Her first stop is actually to a U.S. base to make sure that she has to get physically checked out. They want to make sure she's good, healthy. Most likely, she's probably got the basic stuff. She's dehydrated. She's probably exhausted. They just want to make sure she's good. But she was actually traded for Victor Bout, who is a Russian arms dealer. Who he's already made it home. He's hugged his wife and children. He's happy to be home. I don't know how I feel about this. I am glad that she is home. I feel like what she was charged with was like, y'all could have just fined her a bunch of money and kicked her off the Russian basketball team. But she plays for your team. What are you talking about? So be sentenced to 9 years over hash oil, and not even 9 years in prison. You're 9 years in a hard labor camp.
Right.
That's a lot.
Right.
But then I also don't feel about, somebody like Vladimir Putin getting some allies back. Victor Bout is an ally. I mean, we're literally giving him a leg to stand on, and I guess it's kind of like one of those. Okay, Brittney, we're glad you're home, but we also might die. Like I don't know how this is supposed to go.
We've had that guy for 14 years. I think they say he's been incarcerated in America for 14 years. If we haven't squeezed that turnip and got all the blood out that turnip and know exactly what he knows, he ain't gonna tell us anyway.
So now we send a very bitter Russian back to his home country. Like that's not going to like that. Does anybody else get that? Maybe it's just my political. I watch too many superhero movies.
No. I get it, but is he that one guy that powerful? I'm just like, come on, man. But here's the thing.
Because they offered this up a while ago, and the U.S. was like, absolutely not. There's no, we're not.
Right. And then what ended up happening? Because here's the thing: the whole thing with Phelan is that as he's, which is the other guy that a lot of conservatives and folks are upset, and he flat out was just like, Phelan was taken for espionage, and so he's kind of like in the same boat. These are military people. Guess who's not a military person? Brittney Griner. But guess who's all over the TV all day, every day, all over social? Brittney Griner. And so was it a 1-for-1 as far as the value to our safety and all of that? No, it wasn't. No. But from it comes down from a diplomatic standpoint, and the fact that this black woman, this gay woman, this WNBA star, there's a lot of
Who
WNBA
also
players.
played for your team and brought you
They
a
don't give a
championship
doggone
to
about
Russia?
that mess.
Oh, okay. I
They
just thought
don't
that
give a
was so
rat's
weird. It's
about
so
that.
weird.
And here's the thing. I'm hoping that a lot of these young women, and a lot of people say, well, why is she going over there? A lot of WNBA players, they supplement
Don't make
their
no money.
salaries. They don't make enough money in the
No.
US. They supplement their salaries by playing overseas. Turkey, Israel, Russia, China, all overseas. And
Yeah.
so that's why she was there. And so I'm hoping that I kind of had a thought earlier. I said it would be nice because we know they're not getting paid the way they should. But it's also a market. It's also about what the market will bear. Men are not interested as much in going to a WNBA game.
No.
And so more women and more girls need to be taken to these games to fill up because that's who they can aspire to be. I love basketball. We love basketball because I wanted to be James Worthy.
Can I find a man at a WNBA game? If I can't find a man there, then why am I going?
Well, then, okay. If that's your position, and that is women's
No, I'm
position.
married. I'm happily married. I'm talking from my
But no,
single
but
girlfriend.
we're all talking hypotheticals. If a woman is saying, I'm not going to go to a WNBA game because I'm not going to find any men there, then I don't want that same woman to say, but why is Brittney Griner making as much as LeBron James? Or why there's a meme that goes around right now that says that, the MVP in the WNBA makes half as much as the mascot for the Denver Nuggets. I don't believe it.
No.
But at the same time, if the average NBA fan is more familiar with the mascot of the Denver Nuggets than the winner of or the MVP of the WNBA. But that's not the point. The point is, I would love to see NBA players in those cities have an investment in those WNBA teams, and that will encourage them to market the product better. But let's get back to what we talked about today. The fact that so many people have turned this into a political deal, where I saw this woman on a thread today, white woman, who basically was just saying that y'all only care about her because she's black and she's gay and she's a rich basketball player. One, she's not rich.
No.
Two, so basically all of a sudden now that is an extreme advantage in this woman's eyes to be black, gay, and a woman, which we all know are three marks in America that always makes us look like we're less than man. Stop with that nonsense.
I think all of us would care if any American athlete, I don't care if you out here playing badminton, went to Russia, got arrested for something stupid. We all would be like, nah, see, 9 years in a prison camp? Like that seems
over
excessive.
nonsense.
Like that's unnecessary.
Over nonsense. Yeah. And so, hey man, for people who are upset that Brittney Griner got out and Phelan didn't get out. And here's the thing, guess who else is not mad about Brittney Griner getting out and Phelan not getting out? Phelan's family. Phelan's family put out a statement earlier today that basically said that the U.S. did the right thing. Phelan's brother has been all over television all day basically saying that the U.S. government did the right thing. They're not bitter. So if Phelan's family are saying this was the right move.
I wish my brother would. I wish my brother would get on national TV and say, they made a right choice not letting my brother out. I would send him, all I can do is send hate mail, but I would flood his email box. I would be going up to the jail mail people like these 55 letters
but here's the thing, the difference, if you are a former U.S. Marine and you probably are a professional spy and you got caught up and that's why you're stuck in Russia, then
no, it's different. It's definitely different.
It's different. And so anyway, so in the midst of all that, we got a couple of our friends. We got a new friend, our man King Williams, and we got an old friend, our man Keith Reed, that's going to join us today. Two great writers. Stop it. Stop treating him like your brother and treat him like a professional right now.
I know.
So, you just can't help yourself. All right, so King Williams and Keith are going to join us a little bit. We're gonna run as long as we feel like it, as long as the conversation is good. And so
there is one more top story we do have to go over. Prayers and condolences. Not condolences, the prayers out to the family of Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is annoying. He's super duper annoying. But recently at his home was called for a self-inflicted stab wound of a 14-year-old child. So basically cutting or something along that. Everyone's assuming that his daughter, because he has a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. Rumor has it his 14-year-old recently came out as bisexual, and that did not go over the best. And she committed some kind of self-harm. Representatives are
Mhm.
saying that she is fine, she's alive, but we hope she gets as much help as possible, because Miguel may be as confused as possible about the LGBTQIA community, but he's still a dad first, and he would never want
Absolutely.
somebody's child to deal with
Absolutely.
that. The part I think is weird is that Ted Cruz didn't fly home. They say he's still in DC, and there's no telling if he is going to go home, which I hope that's being misreported, because that would be a
That would
dick
be Ted
move.
Cruz.
I
Um,
know, but even I always feel like even these awful Republican men, you still have to have a soul for your child. Your
hey man,
child.
hey man, there's nothing. I don't expect much from. Did you see the story? And you're right. Condolences, because when you told me this story, the children have a chance to make their own decisions with their lives. Ted Cruz is doing what he's going to do. He's living his life how he wants to live his life. His kids, a 14-year-old daughter. I got a 11 and 9-year-old in his house, right?
Mhm.
And so I know how emotional, and I know how much it's our job to protect them. And so if he's not doing his job, shame on him. Did you see the story about the January 6th cops family that walked right by Kevin McCarthy and Lindsey Graham when they were getting the medal and refused to shake their hand?
It wasn't just the family; it was all of them. It was everybody getting the medal. Just walk smooth on by, and poor little turtle face McConnell he had his hand out at first because he didn't know what was
Yeah.
going on, because he old. It took him a second to realize what was happening. Then
Yeah.
by the third person, he was just like, "Oh."
They really ignore me on purpose.
McCarthy didn't even put his hands out. He's like, "I know what's up. I'm good. I'm good on all of y'all. I don't even want to be here. They asked me to be here, so I'm
Yeah.
fine. I don't need to shake y'all's hand." But
Yeah.
it was pretty sad because
Yeah.
it looked hypocritical. It did.
What looks hypocritical?
It looked hypocritical for them even being there. You criticize January 6th. You say it was a protest. You're
Mm.
going against this and that. But then we're going to give you guys a word. We're going to talk crap about
But
you.
it wasn't.
And
But remember, it wasn't them who gave it to him. It was the entire U.S. government. So they got
that's
medals.
what I'm
So,
saying. It looks hypocritical for them to be being there and giving the award. I feel like Nancy
oh,
Pelosi
them
did
as
this.
far as
Yes.
okay, I got you. As far as McCarthy and Turtleface, got it. Okay. Um, yeah,
Not
no, it
true.
does. It looks hypocritical, and they played themselves. All right, before we get into well, let's run through our comments a little bit. If you guys got any comments, of course. Let me see who we gonna add to the broadcast today. Everybody, yeah. Oh, my man Brandon, what's going on, Playboy? Good to see you. Good to see you. Guess who's in? Guess who's in the room? Guess who's in the room? Guess who's in the room? Yo, brother.
And you played ball.
You talking about? He was talking about. You were talking about WNBA. You act like you know that you didn't have no love for
No,
the women ball
I
players.
played basketball, and I had several friends who couldn't, after college, they went and played overseas.
Yeah.
I
So
remember the name. Her name was Sheena. She played in Israel for years.
what's going on? Alton Drew hanging out with us today. So, all right, let's get into our what before we bring our guest on in about 5 minutes. And so let's get into our favorite segment of this show.
Segment.
So these are the stories we grab up off these internet streets, and they're kind of hard to believe, but they're absolutely true. Let's get into our first one. And so our first what of the week is Bill Cosby is accused by 5 more women. If they don't let this old man go ahead. So go ahead and set this up. What's going on with Bill Cosby? Lord have mercy.
I mean, it speaks for itself. I mean, he's been accused by 5 more women. A lawsuit filed Monday in New York State court. 5 women, including Cosby Show actor Lily Bernard and editor. Well, she shouldn't count as a new accuser. Lily Bernard.
Why?
She was actually in the documentary. I don't know if you
Okay.
saw the Bill Cosby documentary. I think I recommended it to you. It's really good. It's on Showtime.
Okay.
But it's her. Anyway, Lily Bernard and Ed Turl claimed they were sexually abused or assaulted by the former television star, the Associated Press reported Tuesday. Bernard, Turl, Sindra, and Ladd, who previously spoke out about Cosby's alleged behavior and are
Mhm.
suing the actor alongside additional plaintiffs, Jewel Glidden and Jennifer Thompson, under New York's 1-year window for adults to file sexual abuse complaints.
I just don't, I have very little to say about Bill Cosby because I just
I
go
have a
back
lot
to
to say.
go ahead, but go
But
ahead. I'm gonna let you talk. Go ahead.
I have a lot to say, but at this point, and everybody who's like, "Oh no, he's out of jail. He was found innocent." He was never found innocent, guys. He got off on a technicality because another prosecutor made a massive mistake with allowing evidence in that they shouldn't have. I also feel like at this point, ladies, I'm sorry this happened to you. I think it's awful and disgusting. I think he's disgusting.
Yeah.
But at this point, what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, they just
We
want some
hear
money.
you, we believe
Yeah, we
you,
believe you.
but
We
what
hear
is the
you. Yeah.
point?
Well, they want to be heard and they want to be seen. And I'm like, be heard, be seen. I don't have much. I'm like, Bill, next. Starbucks employee writes monkey on black customer's cup. Lord have mercy. We talked about this in the production meeting. Jesus Christ. So go
And the
ahead. I
reason
want you
why
to
he
set
said
up.
my smiling is because he wants me to say my opinion in front of everybody on this show.
Go ahead. That's what we do.
Okay, so a woman named Monique goes to Starbucks. She places her order. She gets her cup, and it says monkey. Now, if her name would have been Alexis and it said monkey, or Amber and it said monkey, or Diane and it said monkey, or Blanche, hey Mama Blanche, and it said monkey, I could be like, oh my God, that is so wrong, it's so racist. But Monique and monkey, true enough, nobody is named monkey. The problem
Right.
is with a Starbucks worker is that they're so busy trying to get the order and there's so many people in line, they're typing whatever, they don't care. They're just trying to get a name on a cup and get it out the door. I feel like if they can't hear somebody, they just need to use a generic name. This person is just going to be Jane.
I'm just, the
I don't
only,
think this person did this on purpose.
the
I
only,
really don't.
the only thing I'm going to give them is that we know autocorrect is a monster. And I don't know in their little
This is
system,
true.
I don't know if they're in their little system, if there's an autocorrect feature in their system. And that's the only thing I'm going to give as being a possibility on why they wrote monkey instead of Monique and that they're not racist rat bastards. I'm going to give them that only out. All right. So let's move on. Number 3. We just got to have a segment that's just called the Nick Cannon segment. Mariah Carey wants Nick to spend more time with his kids. Now, this part that I said, when he started having all these kids, I said, man, I don't give a dog on how much money you got. You can't spread yourself that thin and be able to be a good father to 11 children. And so
And
now
he has
Mariah
lupus.
Carey,
He
and
just
he
got
has
out of the
lupus, and he
hospital.
just got out the hospital. And so now Mariah says, I know you over here popping all these babies over here, but you got 2 more youngins over here that you're not paying attention to.
And she's right, because she made an interview that, he only comes around for holidays and birthdays. The kids do not see him other than that. If that plans to be his plan for these recent batch crop of kids that have come up in the past 2 years, that's a horrible plan. That's not love.
And I was reminded recently that he has lupus. And I've been trying to figure out where this guy is going and why he's doing what he's doing. And it could very well be psychologically that he's trying to plant his seed so that if he does succumb to the lupus, and he'll have his legacy will live on. I could be stretching it. I could be reaching a little bit there, but maybe that's it. But now here's the thing. You're here. The same time you're in New York City at Madison Square Garden selling out with your Wild 'N Out crew and y'all done sold out Madison Square Garden. You need to spend some time with your children. Period.
But
Point blank.
also, and another part that I think is awful is that lupus is passed genetically. If you
Mm,
are a parent with lupus, you have a high chance of passing it on to your child. So why
yeah.
would you kind of roll the dice for these children to have to deal with a chronic illness like lupus?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just crazy. But hey, you need to pick up the phone, Nick, and go spend some time with your kids. Because Mariah, she probably got some dough to make life a little bit worse for you if you don't handle your business. All right. Number 2, Celtics, Brown, and Missoula do not care about British. Why do these people think we give a doggone about these royalties? So he was in a press conference. Both Jaylen Brown, who plays for the Celtics, he was asked by a reporter, and these reporters be asked us really dumb questions just to see, I need
But
to
they're
go find.
asked to ask this question, though. These types of questions, like who was in the crowd, they're asked to ask these questions so that they can get these cute little sound bites about, oh, we loved having so-and-so in the audience. Like, oh, I'm a big fan. Sorry, I didn't get a high five. They want that sound bite. And
Yeah,
for this, they did not get that sound bite at all. They go, who
yeah.
are these white people? What white people?
Yes.
What?
So Jaylen Brown basically said it's just a regular old game, and it was just like, okay, crickets, crickets. But then when it came down to Coach Missoula, who's the new head coach, who replaced Emi Udoka, he said, "Royal family talking about Jesus, Mary, and Joseph." So he went straight hard Christian on him, and of course he joking, but guys,
Joking.
stop acting like why do y'all think we supposed to care about a bunch of royals? We don't care.
You know why they think we care? Because of Meghan Markle, because she's American. Now we all should care about the royals. No, we care about Meghan Markle and Harry, who live here now. Y'all don't like them. Y'all hate they show on Netflix. We keep them, but we don't see them at basketball games. We don't see them out.
But here's the thing. y'all might care, women might care. A basketball player that plays for the Boston Celtics could give a damn
Do
about the royal
not.
family.
Number
Dude
one.
does not care, and his coach don't care neither. And number one in the what of the week, TJ Holmes, Amy Robach, GMA saga. I'm gonna let you take this because this is another I don't care, but I know a whole lot of folks watching this show do care.
Okay, I'm gonna need TJ Holmes to keep his penis in his pants. The reason why I'm saying that is because apparently Amy Robach is not his first affair. He's had an affair with another producer who has left GMA since. He's had an affair with multiple people at his job. He's also a total douchebag that nobody wants to work with as a producer. Amy Robach apparently got with her current husband, who she's cheating on TJ Holmes with. She got with her husband while she was still married. So there's so much garbage and so much minutia happening. ABC was like, nah, y'all just got to come off the air. We have no idea when you guys are coming back on, but y'all have to get off the air until we figure out what's going on. I don't think they deserve to be fired because professionally they're good at their job and there is no morals clause at ABC to deal with this.
Do we know that?
But
we don't know that.
There is no morals clause for this at ABC.
Okay. Well, being good at your job, and I'm full to, I'll be quite honest with you. We're as good as a lot of people that's on television. It's just so being good at your job, they can replace you real quick. TJ Holmes, bruh, you need to slow down, Playboy, because you got a job that a whole lot of people want, and once you're gone, you're gonna be writing, you're gonna be hosting podcasts and writing books.
I think the two people who replaced both of them, I think they're the one who hired the photographer. I'm not even joking. Those two people might have been waiting in the wings for years and been like, you know what? We know they're messing around. Can't prove it. Let's hire this detective. Put these pictures out there and we'll be next. Honestly, if I was in their shoes, I would have done it. I'm not even gonna lie. If I knew somebody was having an affair at work and they had the job I wanted, I'm sorry. I'm putting your business out in the streets.
Well, and that's what's happening. All right, so that's your What segment of the week. If you missed any part of this, make sure you come on back. And it's going to be on the YouTubes and the Facebooks. And I didn't do LinkedIn this week because I knew it was going to be a little messy. So
I hate LinkedIn.
Well, hey, man, people like to engage on LinkedIn, but we're not doing that this week. All right, so that's our What segment of the week. And so we appreciate y'all. So here's the thing. It's time to bring in our guests because they're in the green room. They're waiting on us. And so as we mentioned.
And by the way, King, when I roll my eyes, I'm not rolling my eyes at you. It's specifically just for Keith. So don't think I'm doing it for you.
Oh, God. And so we're going to have two folks that's going to be hanging with us today. We got our new friend, King Williams. We have our longtime friend of the show, Keith Reed. And we've got both of them who are amazing writers. They're out here in the streets and they're getting it done. But before we bring them in, I wanted to, go over, just give you my little synopsis. And so all week long, we've been hearing this nonsense about Dion. And this Dion's moves, from him being a football player, and then I watched him when he really got connected to I believe T.D. Jakes is his pastor. So he really started talking, he started getting into his faith world. And he was doing a lot of training and kind of that club football stuff in Texas before he got the gig at Jackson State. So when people said, he's just a television guy.
Huge gap.
Huh?
It's a huge gap of craziness. You're just skating right over.
Well, I'm skating because we got some time. We're going to talk about this with our guest. But people...
The reality show.
You gonna let me make my little diatribe, but we can get into all this with everybody's on the show. Anyway, so here's my point. He wasn't as inexperienced as people thought he was. And when he got the Jackson State job, what he did have was great relationships with some of the best football players in the country because of who he was, and he's in the state of Texas, right? And so he got the Jackson State job and he did a great job. But when he left, for people who know the business, no, this was not no big surprise. Where are you? What's going on? Let me go to my one shot. And so when I look at the difference in resources, one of the first things that jumped out to me when I looked at these two schools, I said University of Colorado and Jackson State. And I looked at the revenue and people says, oh man, why didn't you just say Jackson State? Now these numbers are coming from Sportico, collegefactual.com, revenues from the school. This is not the net revenue because when it's all said and done, these schools ought to operate. University of Colorado, $35 million. Jackson State, $8 million. But if you look at it, it's a wash. Jackson State pretty much spends every dime, and this is for the entire athletic program. If we look at the endowment, $1.85 billion. Jackson State, $60 million. Mm-hmm. That is the definition of apples and oranges. And so when everybody started getting so upset about the fact that he left Jackson State to go to Colorado, and Colorado ain't done nothing, and they ain't won nothing, and they this and they that. And so I said, guys, it's a big difference. And so let me bring in our guest, as I wanted to I wanted to talk to our friends who I know who are deep into this space. Not only, and I watched King and some of the stuff that he was talking about, and I always know Keith's got something strong to say about it. Let me bring in our guest, and Keith. Well, no,
Keith.
matter of fact, let me go to this
Keith.
shot. Keith, you ready, brother?
Keith.
Keith's not ready yet. Um, Keith, you ready, brother? He's coming. I think we're gonna wait for Keith because see, this is live. This is live. What's up, man?
What are you doing?
He only have his headphones on.
Oh God.
So anyway, as Keith's getting ready, introduced on the right below me is our man Keith Reed. Right beside, right below Kia is our people's King Williams. Welcome to Live Full Circle Radio tonight. Good evening.
Thanks for having me.
So I promise you that Keith is going to be really engaged when he realizes that he's on the air. And so, is he frozen? Looks like his video is not moving. Let me see.
Yeah, he
I just texted him and I just asked him, what is he doing? I was like, what the F are you doing right now? We all can see you. Honestly, this is all of our worst nightmare. When you get on a show that you don't know is live and then you're doing all this other stuff and whatever. Anyway, we're going to keep going.
He's coming back in. He's coming back in. Let's see.
So me and Miguel, and I think Keith, we're all HBCU graduates, so this hits a little bit different.
Keith, can you hear us? Keith, can you hear us? Okay. Your mic is not on yet.
He does this professionally too. That's the sad part.
I'm gonna make sure that it's not, make sure it ain't because King, you're good, right?
If y'all can hear me, I can hear y'all.
Yeah.
Yes, because King knows what he's doing. King knows how this goes.
No, I'm not going. Let me unassigned placeholder, and we're gonna do this again.
Okay, cool. King, where did you go to school?
Georgia State in Atlanta.
Okay, so one PWI and everybody else HBCU, I think.
Yeah, everybody else HBCU. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Because Keith, where is he at?
I want to say one thing while y'all are finding for Keith, if you don't.
Go ahead.
I actually did. I was like a lot of people in Atlanta, like a lot of black. I actually thought I was going to go to HBCU basically most of my college experience, high school experience, and then I saw like the bill to go to Morehouse and then go to Clark, and I was like, well, I'm going to go to Georgia State. So it wasn't like a.
You know what's interesting that you said that, and before we get into this conversation, because it's an important one, there are a lot of people. When I first moved here from Virginia, we've got so many black schools that are there. And people said, black schools are too expensive to go to. I'm just like, what are you talking about? And then I started hearing the context. They were talking about Spelman and Morehouse and Clark. And I was like, oh, when you look at that and seeing how I just paid for my daughter to go to Clark, and yeah, it ain't cheap. And so that's good context for us. So, but let's jump into this thing. You've been talking a lot about on social about the whole Deion Sanders deal, and to your end, we've had the Brittney Griner thing come up today, and so we're gonna talk about that a little bit as well. But let's get your perspective on what is going on with Deion Sanders.
Oh wow! All right, so where do you want to go with that one? Because we can go like at least 10
that's very broad. Ways. Can we narrow this?
So I started off with my position on it. Here's the thing: the big difference between an HBCU and Colorado, there's a gulf, and that's why I wanted to show that number between the two.
Well, as a producer, let me add a specific question. Do you think, because a lot of people think he's dead ass wrong, do you think he's dead wrong for leaving Jackson State after 2 years, after all the kind of speeches he made, and going to Colorado?
No. No. You watch the game of college football, you watch the business of it, you understand this is how it goes. I think the opposite we got to think about. What if Dion stays 2 years and nothing changes, right? Mm-hmm. Or what if he loses over the next 2 years, and then are we going to have that same energy if he has 2 losing seasons after 2 others, right? So I think we kind of got to think about what that is. But also college football is a business, and we can get into that business of it. But I'm not surprised. I understand why people, though, feel hurt by him leaving. So I'm not going to sit up there and dismiss like those emotions. I do think the way he went about it was like a little sloppy.
Well, here's the thing about that, and I hear you about the sloppiness of it. I don't really know, because here's the thing. They said, well, he did not. He promised these kids he was going to. I don't care. Whenever he left, there were going to be kids who just got there that he recruited that he promised he was going to be there. So
Yes.
it's always going to have that part of it where there's going to be people that are going to be disappointed. But Keith, I want to bring you in. Keith, a friend of the show, Keith Reed, prolific sports writer and doing a little bit of everything. Good evening, good brother. We got your tech together.
Appreciate you for having me on. Hopefully I can get out what I need to say quickly because I'm having bootleg internet problems today and I'm just tired of fighting with this router.
Okay.
I'm gonna go on.
Question to you: do you think he's wrong for leaving and going to Colorado, Deion Sanders?
I don't think he's wrong, but you can be right and fucked up at the same time. And that's where we are. Yeah, I'm gonna go straight in. You can do the right thing the wrong ass way. And he did.
So what was wrong with what he did? Because I know the first thing I saw with that whole thread, I had to turn the comments off because so many people responded on my post, and you said it was some BS. And tell us why.
Yeah, look, man. When you stake out, there's a difference between you taking a job and you saying you got a calling from the Lord. This man went on 60 Minutes and spoke in gospel language.
Yeah.
About what he was called to do
Yes.
at Jackson State University and for HBCUs in general.
Mhm.
And when you go and stake your reputation and put it on God, God, the Lord. You understand me?
Well, let me respond.
Tell me that you're not only taking a job, but you're taking a mission. And then turn around and as soon as somebody backed the Brinks truck up like a stripper's ass at a club in Atlanta.
Keep going hard tonight. So here's the thing. Here's the thing, Keith. Let me respond to that, Keith.
Drinking?
Okay. If he has, it is what it is. Here's the thing. That's a whole nother conversation. There are people
it's not
who
a
don't
whole
believe.
other conversation.
Let me tell you, it is. Let me tell you why. Because a mission, a job that if you're a person of that faith, yeah, that mission can say your job was to be there for 6 months to a year and you move on to the next. But here's the thing.
That's not how that speech sounded. I have to agree with King.
That part.
Wait,
go ahead.
His head too.
Go ahead.
King, you agree too. That speech was like
which speech? Because he gives speeches every time he opens his mic. Which speech?
Every Pastor Dion speech felt like he was building like a thing.
He got a speech every time he opened his mouth. Stop preaching to people and speechifying to people. If you know your mind change, whatever direction the wind blows. Here's the thing, man.
I don't believe that's how I move.
Whatever job you want to take, right? I've worked in black media, meaning black-owned media, which is different from black-targeted media, which is different from general market media and I've done them all, right? I've worked for black-owned media. I've worked for targeted media that is not black-owned, and I've worked in big places, ESPN, the Boston Globe, etc. I've done all of that, right?
Yeah.
And I've never entered. I have a passion. I have a commitment. There's something about my calling to bring truth to light as it regards the African American community, right? And that's one of the reasons I became a journalist. But I don't go around speechifying about my great commitment to the resurrection of legacy black media, knowing that when ESPN backed the Brinks truck up, I'm out. I'm here to do a job. I'm going to do the best I can at this job. I'm going to give it everything I got. I'm going to bring some stories to light that you might not hear if I wasn't in the room. But then when the next job comes, I'm gone.
Keith, can we keep it? Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real, bro. I'm not Dion. You ain't Dion. Nobody here on this screen is Dion. There are very few jobs like the jobs that are in college football in that position. There are only 12 teams, about to be 10 teams in the Pac-10. There are very few jobs that have those type of resources. And what we know is that there is no HBCU, not a one, that has the resources even close. And here's the thing. Dion is not a product of an HBCU.
Correct.
Dion came into this situation. He could potentially, and I don't know, none of us know him. We know people who know him, but he came into this thing relatively blind. And he probably learned real quick when he got there that when he was asking for more facilities, when he was asking for more salary for his coaches, when he was asking for, there was a situation where the bathrooms
And wait,
wasn't right.
let me bring
Hold
more
on.
thing.
There's a situation where his stuff got stolen, his wallet and everything got stolen. There are things that he may not have understood when he walked in the door that situation was as bad as it was. And then at the same time,
if you're in this conversation and you have Google, raise your hand. It would take you less than a second to find a decade's worth of coverage about the situation going on in Black college football in terms of resources.
So would you rather him not have ever gone there?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But there's a difference, and we're gonna stop acting like there's not a difference between, maybe maybe you saying he shouldn't have gone there in the first place, and you got to support every single thing he did.
You can't have it both ways. Let Kia in. You can't have it both ways. But go ahead, Kia, jump in.
You gotta let me moderate a little bit, because if I leave it up to Keith and Miguel, King won't speak. So, King, go ahead and jump in here. I know you have a lot to say. You two, quiet. Go, King.
Go ahead, King.
Now, I'll just wait till we get to the money conversation on this. I'm just waiting.
Well, let's get to the money conversation. I talked about it earlier. When I pulled up, let me take the interviewers off mute so you guys can see what I see. Can y'all see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. So you're talking about a revenue number of 30. Now, this is Colorado, who's the absolute worst team in the Pac-12. $35 million in comparison to 8. That's just the revenue. When you start talking about an endowment, $1 billion in comparison to 60. That ain't nothing to sneeze at. And when they walk through the facilities, the first time there's a video on YouTube where Prime and his people walk through the facilities, and the facilities were amazing. So there's and let's not act like he's going to Colorado to coach a bunch of white kids. He's still coaching Black kids. Go ahead, King.
Well, no, to your point about Colorado. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but 3 years ago, they raised funds from their alumni base. I want to be clear about this. Their alumni base got together and raised $156 million for that said facility that we're talking about. Even though right now they don't have the $5 million guarantee, they're already working with their alumni base, not the school, the alumni base, to pay for Dion's salary and the salary.
Which is how Power 5 schools do. That's the alumni base pays those salaries. But go ahead. Right.
So what we're talking about too is just like a gulf between things. And I think that when it comes to what Dion is going to, again, Colorado is maybe the worst job in all of Power 5. There are Sunbelt teams with a better overall vibe and facilities in Colorado. So he's not going into necessarily like a pristine job. But I think the money is important on this one, which is, and I was looking into the research on it. If Dion were to stay for 2 more years at Jackson State, there is only about 3 or 4 ways that school could have actually made real revenue. And it wasn't going to be because of TV, because the SWAC that they're in had already re-upped their deal with ESPN for another 6 years. And then they also signed a deal with Byron Allen for his streaming service for 10 years. And so on that end, it's just like, okay, you're blocking your biggest source of revenue, which is TV. That only really leaves for concessions, ticket sales, maybe some merchandise and things like that. And based on the revenue that you show, I was like, there's no way that Jackson State could even get to Colorado's level. Right. And the only way you can get to that is you would have to have, Jackson State would have had to effectively plan the thing Dion didn't want to do, which is like taking paid games, right? So if Dion would have taken $1 million from Colorado, $1 million from Alabama, $1 million from Texas A&M, and you do that for 7 or 8 years, you may get a chance to get up there.
What FAMU does once a year with our football team, because I went to FAM. We ended up playing the University of Miami one year. We were like, why?
They do it every time, and that's the game. Yeah.
But here's the thing. But if you are,
did we lose Keith
again?
Oh
no!
Yes.
While Keith's internet is getting him back in.
Can I finish my statement because he's frozen?
Okay, go for it.
Cool. So with Florida A&M University is my alma mater. It's interesting because our football team makes no money, but our band makes a lot of money. Our band has amazing facilities on campus. Our band has its own football field to practice. So because our band is bringing in so much money, even though they kind of come attached to the football team, all that money goes to them. And the football team has very crap facilities. They don't get what they need. They don't get the recognition they need. It's almost like, the marching 100 and the football team. Like the football team.
That's not.
That comes with a lot of HBCUs, though.
But that comes with all the HBCUs. That's the part that we seem to be, when people get so upset about what is going on with HBCUs, Jackson State, I looked at their revenue, and King, this will make sense to you. I looked at the revenue of that school, the operating, not the football, not the athletic department, but the school in general. 40% of the operating revenue comes from the state. The state of Mississippi provides revenue for the school to run. And that's the part people say, well, why can't HBCU just build themselves up? So tell me why Jackson State and Norfolk State and why North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University can't do their own thing, because they're not owned exclusively by Black people. They're owned by the states. And so when they're owned by the states, you know, we had that constant struggle in Virginia with Norfolk State and Old Dominion. I'm a Norfolk State grad. And for years, they were trying to get us to agree as Norfolk State alum and Norfolk State community to join in with Old Dominion and for it to become one university. Old Dominion's revenues are in the top 60 in the country, right? Norfolk State is nowhere near that. When you Norfolk State, I mean, ODU did not have a football team 20 years ago. Now they've got a quarterback that plays for the Washington Commanders, and now they're a respectable football team. It's apples to oranges. It's apples to oranges, King and Keith. That's the part that people get all emotional about this stuff. We're not in the same ballpark with the Pac-10 or SEC schools.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. You better say something, Kia.
Your mic is off. Everybody's having technical problems today. Keith, are you good over there? I see you blinking, so I think you're good. And his mic is not working either.
Oh no.
What is going on today?
Yeah, we got a little bit of mic problem. But I will say, for everyone else who does love HBCUs, myself included, I do think we should, as we're getting our mics situated, we should be considering what could we be doing to keep HBCUs financially solvent going forward. One of the easiest things is for us to buy tickets, to the game, buy merchandise, buy season ticket packages if you can, because these are things that they can actually use for both football, men's and women's basketball, and some of the other sports we don't really associate with them, like soccer and track and things like that.
But here's the thing, and I hear you, but that is not enough. And that's the part that we got to understand, that when it comes down to the revenues, the ticket prices are not what's going to drive. People got to understand that sports and athletics are the number one marketing vehicles for these universities. Mm-hmm. You know, when you think about you think about the Penn States of the world and the Alabamas of the world and all of these schools, it really comes down to their ability to use these mediums to get visibility. I remember when my daughter was getting ready to go to school, she was looking at Auburn, and I said, okay, well, Auburn, why is Auburn charging, some $40,000 a semester to go to Auburn? Kia, speak to see if you're still or not. I don't know what is going on today. And so when you start talking about those issues, you have a situation where, let me do this. Try again, Kia. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. This is such a great conversation, and our technology is failing us today. All right, so go out and come back in, and then we'll see if we can figure out what is going on. So that's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing, and that is the fact that when it comes down to these schools, our Black schools do not honor those athletic programs for the value they bring to the organization.
I agree with you, and I think also when it comes to that, to Kia's point about the band, what we look for, and to be honest, let's be real, sports is entertainment, right? And for like the broader culture, and especially like, no offense, white culture, like white males who are running a lot of these TV stations and things like that.
Yeah, I think we're good. Yep.
I
hear noise now.
No, whatever. Fine.
Text Keith, tell him come on back. We probably got to figure it out. But go ahead, King.
Yeah, I just think it's important too. Like culturally, we value different things, and even to your point about the Pac-12, if anyone who follows the game know that we know in 10 or 15 years there may be a scenario in which college football becomes really two conferences, right? And maybe even a school like Colorado is left from the outside looking in. And so I do think that when we come to this point, the math doesn't math if you're just doing like the long term. The Big Ten just signed a 7-year, $8 billion contract, right? There's only so many other pieces of revenue to go around. You look at what the Pac-12 is eventually going to get, and I just don't know if that's even attainable long term, right? So even if Dion's trying to level up, there is a scenario where Dion levels up, does everything right, and still gets left out in the cold once again. And
Well, it's relative. Once again, it's relative what we
Yeah.
call getting left out in the cold.
I do have
Being
a question that I got cut off
making
for.
making the money and building a program in Colorado, a team that has won a national championship before, in comparison to trying to build up a Jackson State to even be relevant to beat Montana State. There's a gulf between those two. Go ahead, Kia.
So my question is, how much of this, and again, like you said, the alumni is coming together to pay Dion. They ain't got it, but their alumni is going to make it happen.
They got
So
it.
with HBCUs and Jackson State, does some of this fall on the alumni of us not giving back as HBCU? Because no, you're shaking. See, it's funny.
But
You're shaking, no.
here's why.
Yes, so
Here's why I shake my head with that, because the real you have to really be honest with ourselves. And if we're going to be honest with ourselves, we have to understand that Black folks in the alumni of these universities don't have the resources somebody from the University of Colorado and those
that's
big
not
schools have.
true.
That is
No,
true.
I'm not playing that game.
It
No,
is true. It is
it's
true.
not.
If you look at the fact that a lot of Black folks are still owing loans until their kids are going to school, they don't have the resources and they don't have the size of the schools. Because if we looked at the size of the enrollment at the University of Colorado, our venture guess is probably above 20,000, 25,000 students a year, which also
And
is
you
a
would
bunch of
think
kids.
that's cool, but it's not. It's not. That's
We can do the research. But go ahead, Keith. Let me see you're moving around. Go ahead, see if we're good with you.
All right, can you hear me now?
We
I don't
got
even know
you.
where we are in the conversation because again, my complex's bootleg internet is off.
So the question to the group is, does some of this fall on the alumni of Jackson State? Does some of it fall on the alumni with not giving back to the school where, coming up with a salary that makes sense for someone like Deion Sanders, so he would stay and grow the program, improving the facilities and making it just a better environment for players and coaches?
Yes, but the extent of that would probably be somewhere less than 10. I mean, what you're really talking about is a structural and a systemic issue. Think about the fact that Black colleges and universities grow out of a legacy of being separated and segregated from the majority institutions to begin with, right? And so these institutions were always underfunded. These institutions essentially exist in the same paradigm that Black folks overall in this country exist, which
Correct.
is doing a lot more with a lot less,
Correct.
right? So so institutionally, and you can say the same thing. I talked earlier about Black media. You can say the same thing about Black businesses. You can say the same thing about Black venture capital. There are disparities that exist in every facet of Black life in this country. Black colleges and universities, and by extension, their athletic departments are no different. So if you're going to tell me that you're taking a university that primarily serves a populace that has, on average, lower incomes, higher rates of debt, lower net worth, lower home ownership, all of the things that will be markers of their ability to be able to contribute to the growth of an institution
In the poorest
overall,
state in America.
then you're also going to be
state in America.
You're in the poorest state in America.
Right.
You're going to be talking about an institution that has trouble raising the kind of money that bigger institutions raise. Oh, and by the way, happens to be the same state where Brett Favre was able to get a few $1 million slid over to Southern Miss out of welfare funds to build a facility. I mean, if they was going to slide some welfare money anywhere to build a new athletic facility, they probably should have thought about Jackson State as opposed to Southern Miss, with Brett Favre, who is an alumni of that institution, could have built it out of his own pocket. So there's a lot of conversations that could be had there.
I'm just going to veer off a little bit. Why did that story fly so far under the radar? I felt like that Brett Favre story was a huge, just him being grimy, huge story. I mean, they ran with Tom Brady's divorce for a while and him not wanting to be a father and be home. But I feel like this Brett Favre story was major, and it just was kind of like, oh, he just stole $5.
I don't think it did fly under the radar. If you pay any attention to the sports world, you've known for years that Brett Favre had gotten that welfare money. This wasn't new. It came back up this year because this is years old. This didn't just happen. This was years old, right? And it came out a long time ago that Brett Favre had gotten money through the welfare system to give speeches around the state that he didn't give, and he had to give some of that money back. But that's an old story. What's newer is the part about him sending texts to the woman who was dispersing the welfare money, and that came out because the man who ran the state of Mississippi's welfare system is on trial. Okay, and so
Mhm.
since that case is going through the courts, and there was discovery in these text messages came out in those proceedings, now we know a little bit more about something that we already knew about. But people keep saying to me, like as I write about things like Jackson State, and I write about what's happening in the sports world as it relates to black folks, every time I turn around, somebody's saying, "Oh, but you ain't writing about Brett Favre." Bro, I've been on TV and writing and on the internet and on these Twitter streets talking about Brett Favre for the past decade. Where you been, right?
Yeah.
So people quit telling us that the media ain't talking about this and the media ain't talking about that, when the answer is you just don't read. Nothing
Well,
will come along.
I get
I
that.
want to get thoughts
Mhm.
on this. Like, let's let King get in here on this comment.
Okay, I want to do a little bit of pushback on that, which is, while you've been doing that, I will say, like, the average black person, no offense, we get most of our news now either through still black radio, like Instagram celebrity accounts, and like things that are more colloquial, right? No offense, I knew more people talked about Brett Favre because they saw it on a July Shade Room post, right?
Whose fault is that, bro? I
No,
mean,
it's
like,
not-
for real.
That's how we're
listen,
like kind of getting our information. So like it's
we-
kind of
we
hard
live
to
in-
be like
we
that.
live in a world where we all have more access to information than any one of us growing up ever did have, and in any prior generation on earth ever did have. And if all of your information comes from a Shade Room social media account, it's your goddamn fault. It's not. It is not because
Well,
there
in
are
all
journalists
fairness,
out
though, like
here
how many
doing
of
the
us
work
are
and
checking
putting
for like
information in your hand.
Mississippi and HBCUs? And like, let's be honest, like we can do the Google searches on it. It's like the average consumer, if they're getting younger, they're not necessarily going to be looking for Mississippi Today or something like your work, because they don't know that things exist.
Right.
A lot of these kids don't even, since Dion's been in Jackson State and also Brett Favre, this is their first time even being exposed to HBCU and HBCU life. So all these
Can
things
we talk about the fact? Let's just keep it real. We family, right?
Mhm.
We pretty much expect white folks to get away with stuff, and we don't and so the whole Brett Favre thing, we feel like Dion is ours. We feel like Dion is one of us, and he's accountable to us. For people to expect Dion to be fully accountable to the whole 109 HBCUs and to be the savior for all the HBCUs is insane. But with Brett Favre, we pretty much, hold on, let me finish my point. I'm gonna let you come in. But let me finish my point. But with Brett Favre, we expect white boys like Brett Favre to get away with it. Go ahead, kid.
We only think that about Deion Sanders, like what Keith said and what King said, is that if he hadn't made that dumb speech, if he hadn't made that
Which one? Because all they do is make speeches.
I know he's a speech guy. I know that's what he loves. I feel like he could be the pastor who got robbed in his own church. Deion Sanders could be that guy. He really could.
Y'all talk so bad about Dion. Go ahead.
Also, didn't he have a song out called About the Money? Something
He was
about the
25 years old in the league. Like, that was 30 years
Right,
ago.
and he's been saying the same thing about himself since he made that song 25 or 30 years ago. He hasn't changed. It's like that's the thing. So I don't think I honestly think that this conversation is about the opposite of what you said, Miguel. There are so many people who don't want accountability for Deion Sanders, who want to give him a pass for everything that's happened over the last week, because they feel an obligation to protect the black hero, the man who told us that he was altruistically going to save HBCUs, and people are like, you can't talk bad about him because he gave us our 2 years, and that's all we can expect from him.
How did we get this image of Deion Sanders being this superhero, all-pro black man? Let's think about after he left the league, all the stuff that happened. He had a reality show that was on the Oxygen Network, him and his wife. He then leaves his wife, and then they go through a nasty divorce where he refuses to give her money, even though they had a bunch of kids together. And then didn't he end up dating or marrying Babyface Edmonds' ex-wife?
They are still together. They are together.
Oh, that's beautiful. Isn't that
that's his ex-wife? Are they not supposed to date again? I don't care.
I don't understand what that. I got to tell you, I don't understand what the whole thing about his personal life has to do with this conversation at all.
It does. Because what I'm saying is, it's always been about the money for him. The reality show was stupid, but he needed the check, because when he left the league, people are saying his money has been a little bit iffy since he left the league. That has been the rumor. Is that a BS rumor?
So here's the thing. Let's take that as truth. So if his money is funny, then why would he go take $5 million to go coach? Because here's my thought on the whole thing. I want to let wealthy people be wealthy and hold them accountable to stay engaged. If he turns around and does what the rumors are that he's going to take half his salary and send it back to Jackson. That's the rumor. Don't know if it's true.
That's not going to happen.
Who knows? He gave half his salary while he was at Jackson back to Jackson. So let's just say that he becomes a wealthy donor back to Jackson State. Let's just say in the age of transfer portals, because right now he's basically taking Jackson State and saying outside of his son, he's also taking other players from Jackson and going to give them a Power 5 opportunity to come to play with him in Colorado. He done told them kids that was there, getting the transfer portal, you're not good enough and bringing my own team. And so that's the part I'm not apologizing for Dion. I'm not surprised. Me as a Norfolk State grad, when all this, he gonna save HBU. The only way I felt we were gonna benefit from him was last year when Norfolk State, 70% of the season were number 1 in the MEAC. And I said, man, if we win the MEAC, we get to play Jackson State in Atlanta. It's gonna be a recruiting deal for us gonna work. I don't expect any other benefit from him all the way in Jackson to Norfolk State, all the way in VA. And so that's the part that just seems to me is so people just don't get how this stuff works. And when I say that, there's some really bright people. Say what? Go ahead and let's get King back in. But go ahead, King.
And so what we understand about how this works runs counter to what Deion Sanders has been telling us since he got to Jackson State. That is the crux of the issue that people have with what Deion Sanders is saying.
I think that's the crux of the issue of what you have. I think most people don't know what the hell they're talking about.
No,
I don't think a lot of people don't understand the business.
I tend to have most of my conversations with people who actually know a little bit of something about the world, not the people who get all their information from the shade room. So, so the conversations that I'm having is with people who know how this stuff works, and people who know how this stuff works agree with what you just said, which is that we all know that Deion Sanders was not changing the paradigm, was not changing the business model, was not remaking Jackson State or remaking Jackson, Mississippi, or remaking the SWAC, or remaking HBCUs writ large in the few years that he was going to be at that institution. And I'm good with that. You got every ability to be able to change your own situation and circumstance and go make as much money as you can. But stop telling me the opposite. You're not, and I know that you're not going to fix all of HBCUs in 2 years. So quit telling me that you're Jesus Black HBCU.
I need to see the video of I need to see the video of him saying that. I've never heard him say I'm the savior of all of HBCUs.
He said on 60 Minutes, God called him collect, and he answered. That's what he said.
What is wrong with that? I don't understand. What is wrong with that? That's the part that we. How you know what God did to him? How you know how God called him? King, I want to get King back in the conversation, brother. Go ahead and jump in. I don't want to make sure you just sitting there looking pretty with your headphones on.
Oh, no, it's all good. I will say this. I did a little bit disagree. I think Dion actually did do something. I think the bigger issue is that, one, Jackson State didn't, at least to everyone else's knowledge, a contingency plan when Dion left or he got fired, right? Like, who is the coach now at Jackson State? What is the fundraising efforts now at Jackson State? What are still like some of these other issues that any other team would be doing after a major coach leaves? The other is we have, again, data on this. Like, Deion Sanders being at Jackson State is why there have only been 4 ESPN College Game Days in the history of College Game Day, a 30-year program that happened this year at Jackson State. The most searched team on the ESPN's website and also ESPN's YouTube channel is Jackson State University. The promotional value that USA Today ran about what school got what exposure this year, Jackson State had the highest in promotional value, is estimated at $185 million. ABC and Good Morning America and all these other morning talk shows are only going to Jackson State. They're not going to Alabama, which is a very successful program. They're going to Jackson State. So I can't say that it's not. Now, I get it. A lot of people really love their HBCUs, but we have to be honest. He brought a lot of attention that may have been 30 years worth of attention in 2 years, but there still hasn't been a plan from Jackson State, the SWAC, the MEAC, or anyone else on how to capitalize on it or how to build from it. So now we're in this point where people have treated this man like Jesus, and now they're kind of looking for a savior. So we can't act like we didn't see this coming.
There's no plan because there's not a contingency plan because there is no contingency for losing a coach like Deion Sanders.
Right.
Because Deion Sanders is singular. Deion Sanders is different than everybody else. He's been telling us for decades that he is different than everybody else.
And
When he was in the league, what I wrote in my story when I wrote about this earlier this week, what I said was, as a player, Deion Sanders was a constellation among stars. And that is true. He was better than most people. And he told us all the time that he was better than most people. And because he was better than most people, because he loves attention, because he's able to leverage his platform and the way he speaks and his voice and his charisma and all of that, there is no contingency by which a school like Jackson State that doesn't have the resources that we talked about earlier can replace somebody like Deion Sanders. It was a once in a lifetime hit. And that is the issue, that this was always a temporary, once in a lifetime hit. It was not going to bring structural change to Jackson State, nor was it going to bring structural change to HBCUs. So all of that very real impact that you just talked about in terms of those numbers, and I've seen all of those numbers, that stuff was temporary.
Right.
HBCU, College Game Day at ESPN, and I worked at ESPN, and I'm telling you, College Game Day ain't going back to Jackson State next year. You know what they're going to be?
No.
They're in Colorado.
They're going to be in Colorado. And I want us before.
All of the cachet that Dion brought to Jackson State, all of the attention, all of the cameras, even the donors, most of them that he brought into Jackson State, the coaches like Mike Zimmer, who was a consultant on his staff, a former NFL head coach, and the recruits that he brought with him are all going west right now. If they ain't already on the plane, they're getting on it tomorrow morning, and they are not coming back to Jackson State. And that is the crux of my issue.
The last 40 years of my life, I've been watching professional sports. I can't think of three other athletes in football, maybe some individual sports, but the type of personality and what he garnered as far as attention, you can't name anybody. I'm trying to say maybe Mike Vick, but his personality wasn't like that. You would say Tom Brady, but a lot of people still don't like Tom Brady. When you start talking about somebody who garnered the level of attention in a game like football, the game of football is built for nobody to be able to stand out. Everybody got to wear the same length socks. They can't have the shirt hanging out. Half the time they can't have, Omar thinks Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens is a distant second or third. So to your point, replacing Deion Sanders
is not
is not, you can't do it.
It's going to be posting names. Ocho Cinco now.
Yeah, Ocho Cinco followed the Dion model. Dion was the blueprint of that, and he took that same model, went into the coaching space. So no, we don't expect anybody. Who is going to stay? He's already tried to get his next guy, which is one of his assistants, to keep the job and be the stopgap. But just like Dion leaving, just like Joe Paterno passing away, just like, you name some of the biggest college coaches of all time, it took forever to get a guy behind him. Right now, you can't even really name the guy. I forgot his guy's name at Penn State. He's been there 10 years.
James Franklin's done well at Penn State.
And he's done well, but his personality is never going to match a Joe Paterno, right? And so I get it. I want to get in before we go. I want to give you guys the opportunity to talk about Brittney Griner as well as Reverend Warnock before we go, because I know you both are talking about that stuff as well. But let's give everybody an opportunity to close out their last thoughts on Dion. King, let's start with you, brother.
Just good luck, HBCUs. You got a new contract that starts next year with ESPN. Make the most of it.
Kia.
Stop telling
Omar,
people.
Can you please bring me my makeup remover? That was my comment. Omar, can you bring me the makeup remover?
Go ahead,
Thank
Keith. Go ahead, Keith.
Stop telling people who have criticism for Deion Sanders that they're haters. They're not haters. People, you're allowed to criticize somebody for doing something that you disagree with, and you can also think that person did a good thing. Both of those things can be true. He did some good while he was at Jackson State. He had every right to leave. I still got smoke for the way he walked out the door, and it is what it is.
My real comment is, I hope this doesn't stop people from attending HBCUs. HBCUs offer a wonderful and amazing education. Again, 3 HBCU graduates here. I would not change my experience at an HBCU because I went to white schools all the way up to high school. Going to an HBCU was an amazing life education for me. So I hope this doesn't stop people from going to HBCUs.
I never had any expectation Dion was going to do more than what he already did. So if anybody who decided they are not going to go to all the 109 HBCUs because of Deion Sanders in Jackson, Mississippi, which 99.9% of us have never been to Jackson, Mississippi. Don't give a damn about Jackson. Love my people in Jackson. But if that's your argument, then you just talking because you don't really know how it's working. Be mad, move on. And then when it's all said and done, hopefully another person with some personality goes to Jackson, goes to another HBCU and does what he was able to do in that scenario. Because we are at a place that we've never been. You used to have to sit out a year if you wanted to transfer. Now it's to the point that as soon as the season's not even over, the bowl games have not been played, and these kids are in the transfer portal now, and they're not going to play in the bowl games, but they decide they're going somewhere else. The game has changed. Yeah. All right, let's jump in real quick before we go. Let's jump into this Brittney Griner. That's a big story today. King, I want to start with you.
We're not on the Brittney Griner. I'm sorry. Yay, she's back. Yay, she's not going to be.
Let's talk Brittney Griner, then we'll talk Warnock. We'll finish up with Warnock. King, go ahead and talk about Brittney Griner real quick.
Just very interesting that this is how this happened now. I do think for Biden, he's got to be very careful on what the narrative is going to be about this.
Keith?
I wrote a piece today that said that the headline was Brittney Griner was the first Black woman that the United States decided it wanted to rescue. And my point to that, because I had a bunch of people in the comments talking about, well, ain't nobody else ever went overseas, and if that was the takeaway that you had from it, I got to say that you might not have too much reading comprehension. That was not about whether or not somebody else went overseas. It was about the fact that this country historically has treated Black women like doormats, and we are currently in a moment where Black women have so much influence, so much power, and so much ability to be able to keep the story of a nearly 7 foot tall queer basketball playing same-sex marriage involved woman on the front page for 10 months out of the year and make her the foreign policy priority of a presidential administration in a year of a midterm. And that is a big, big, big deal. Welcome home, Brittney Griner.
It is a big deal. Yeah, that she was chosen over a decorated Marine as being the priority. Now, they said that it wasn't even a choice. It was no one or the other. It was either Brittney Griner or it was nobody. And so they stood their ground and they got Brittney out. And so we're happy that she's home. I think we ought to talk to King. Kia, you got anything before we go to Warnock?
No, I said it already. Let's go to Warnock. That's more interesting.
All right, so let's wrap up. Let's wrap up this segment. Let's talk about our man. Let's talk about Senator Warnock, and of course, by talking about Senator Warnock, because King, you're here in Georgia. We're here in Georgia together. I'm so glad that this mess is over with Herschel Walker, and now he can go sit down somewhere and go play with all his raccoons and all that because he's.
He said raccoons are the best animal ever.
I mean, that speaks for itself. I'm not going to tell the obvious joke. I'm not going to say it. But I'm sorry,
King, go ahead. But that still just makes me laugh when he said that. He was like, raccoons are appropriate.
King, I know you deep in this space here in the city, here in Georgia. Talk to us.
I think there's 5 big takeaways from this one. Georgia, one of which is you have 2 things. It seems like now the Dems in Georgia can win federal national elections, which does pose a problem for the Republicans in 2024. 2, it does seem, though, statewide, though, that the GOP is going to have a stranglehold for at least the next 8 years on everything, and that's going to create a very different dynamic. Yeah. The third is, interesting enough, the GOP is facing a culture crisis in the sense that Warnock won. Black turnout is always like we consistently keep supporting the Democrats. We should have a family conversation about that at some point in the future. But one of the things that Warnock did, though,
Kia is a Republican, right?
Yeah. It's we all family. It's all good.
And it's wild that you just keep inviting her here, even though we know that.
But I'm still Black. What the hell? I'm still Black.
It's family. It's family. It is what it is.
Go ahead,
King. Finish your thought.
Okay. Yeah. The third thing, important takeaway is that there is a thing right now. I think the GOP is going to probably target in this upcoming election, which is going to be just changes to the overall electorate, the election process. What that means is, like in the 1960s, especially with Julian Bond and others were trying to run for statewide office, we end up with the runoff system that we have today.
Right.
Now there's rumors coming in that I'm hearing from other people that this legislative session is going to be addressing on how to do away with the runoff system altogether and let it be a plurality. The reason being is because if you're the GOP, you can probably keep winning state ones, but you can't win in 2024. Like the numbers are proving that every single year there's more and more Democrats showing up. So you got to figure out how to way to kind of hedge your bet going into that one. The fourth and most important takeaway, 4 out of 5, is that for now, Georgia has really an important issue, which is you have local organizers, you have the Georgia Democratic Party, which a lot of people don't have faith in, and then you have national. These are 3 different groups with 3 different needs. Local organizers are really, really, really running candidates outside of the traditional state Democratic Party and the National Democratic Party. Khalid Kamal is one of those people. Working Families Parties is another one. They're gaining steam, and there could be a scenario in a couple of years where they start taking out other Democrats across the state, and that could pose a problem. The other one is the National Democrats have this issue now where do you keep putting more resources into Georgia knowing this is your ceiling, or do you put it into Texas? Do you put it in Louisiana? Do you put it back into Arizona and Nevada? Because Georgia seems almost unwinnable on the statewide level. So those are my biggest takeaways from that election on some of the data about it.
Well, Georgia has 159 counties. If you look at the state of Georgia, you know where most of us live. Most of us live around Atlanta, Columbus, Savannah. We're living
Metro
where we're
area.
comfortable in the metro areas. These small counties, which have a representation in the state legislature, just like Fulton County, just like they have representation, it's going to be hard as hell to try to win state legislature here in the state of Georgia. And so that's just the reality. But go ahead, Keith. I know you got some feedback.
So I wrote for months about this race, and a lot of what I wrote, unfortunately, focused on was personality focused on Herschel Walker and his foolishness. But I think in the final analysis, we did learn a little bit of something on the national level about what Georgia is. Full disclaimer: I have a history of having worked in politics in Georgia. I worked in Atlanta City Hall as deputy press secretary for a former mayor. Georgia has demographically changed a lot. Especially in the counties that ring Atlanta, which a generation ago were largely populated and developed around the concept of white flight, and today have been that white flight has the population trend in those areas has been taken over by reverse migration. Black folks largely coming from the north and moving to Atlanta for better weather and prosperity, and that has changed those Atlanta suburban ring counties. And made it possible for some of that vote to flip in some of those areas. But to your point, Miguel, Georgia is still Georgia. So when you see some of the margins out in those counties that went very heavily for Herschel Walker, those places haven't changed as much. And so we have to ask them, how do we get a candidate like Herschel Walker? Well, you got a candidate like Herschel Walker because a candidate like Herschel Walker played very well to people in those counties, not just because he was Republican, but because he reminded them of a bygone era where a candidate that looked like Herschel Walker could be molded and manipulated into saying some things that made him very palatable to an audience who would not find, say, Stacey Abrams or Reverend Warnock or anybody of that nature.
They don't like uppity Negroes, and he ain't no uppity Negro.
But here's the thing, though. Not even you're comparing them to a Democrat. There are Black Republicans who can't be molded like a Herschel Walker can, but they would never pick somebody like me. They would never go back to the Michael Steele, Mia Love era. They're never going back to that because it's not as palatable.
Right.
There was something that was just so insidious about his campaign, and it wasn't so much about, like, I hate to get into conversations around authenticity because I don't believe that there's one way to be Black. In this conversation there's 4 of us and there's 4 different ways to be Black, whatever that is. But what we do know is that there has always existed, and there's always been a storyline throughout our history about those of us whose existence primarily makes white folks more comfortable.
It's
There are
step and
some
fetch
of
it.
us who
It's
spend
step and fetch it.
who spend a lot of our time and a lot of our energy and effort trying to make people who don't have the majority of our best interests at heart more comfortable. And Herschel Walker's entire campaign was about making those people more comfortable. He spent a lot of time distancing himself from conversations around race, distancing himself around
Right.
conversations that dealt with equity, distancing himself
Yep.
from conversations that were about the change that is happening in Georgia all around him. With the irony being that he got the support that he got cynically from the Republican base in Georgia, largely on because he is black, and they looked at the demographic
That's the
change around the
irony in that.
state and
Yes.
said that maybe what we need to do, since Raphael Warnock is the one we're running against, is to put somebody against to run somebody against Raphael Warnock who looks like Raphael Warnock,
Right.
but just somebody who we can stomach a little bit better. And
Correct.
all of that seemed to have been either lost on Herschel or was just something that Herschel didn't care about.
He wasn't
Um,
smart enough to notice, it seems like. He didn't have the education to notice what was happening. All of us, everybody else noticed. It seemed like he just didn't notice. And to me, and I think I mentioned this, and I know I mentioned this on the last time King was on, it's this is how they think of us. This is how they think of Black Republicans. And again, I said it a second ago, it reminds me of a step and fetch it. This is how we think Black folks are. So if this is how you should act in every single film, you should be this stupid kind of watermelon eating, picking cotton, I'm so stupid, massa kind of guy. Even though behind closed doors, even though we don't know if Herschel's smart behind closed doors, you're a completely different person. And let's be clear, a person like Herschel Walker, who is a Heisman Trophy winner, shouldn't he be coaching somewhere, making decent money, coaching on somebody's football field?
No,
Now
because
that's never going to happen. So what is he going to do now? He's going to die
well,
broke after this fiasco.
I've never heard about Herschel Walker coaching the little league team. He's a typical. Think about his career. He was the number one player. I remember him as a kid. He was an amazing football player at UGA. That was before I lived down here. I understand now, being down here almost 9 years, UGA is it. It's UGA, a little bit of Georgia Tech, but UGA in the state of Georgia is it. And so that historical reference, him winning that Heisman Trophy there. But then he went to the USFL, which was at that time, I believe, owned by Donald Trump. And so that's where he built his relationship with Donald Trump. And then he went to Jerry Jones and played, and he played for Jerry Jones, huh?
He's like Johnny Manziel. Remember, everybody thought Johnny Manziel was great after winning the Heisman, and then he turned out to be trash.
Well, but Herschel was a good football player. He built the trade with Herschel, built the Dallas Cowboys championship in the mid-90s. And so as a football player, that's one thing. As a human being, he is that typical, these folks, these Southern white boys built him, built his persona. They probably give him all the speeches and all the businesses that he needed to keep himself solvent since he's been out of the NFL, and he owed them. And he owed them, and he got out there. He trotted himself out there. He made a fool out of himself. And God bless him, wherever he's going to be, go out there and go dance with the raccoons. Man, it has been a great show today, regardless of all of the technical difficulties. King, I appreciate you hanging out. I don't know if Kia told you, this is family right here. The three of us have done shows for the last 10 years. And so,
that's cool.
And Keith won't be back on again, just so you know.
Keith will be back on. Ain't nobody listen to Kia. Keith gonna be back on whenever
if
he
you
feels.
if you mess around, you're gonna be producing a show tomorrow because I got something else I want to say. Talking about I ain't gonna be back again. We be here tomorrow at the same time, y'all.
Yeah, man. We do appreciate every bit, and we can, we family. We can agree to disagree where we disagree, and we still gonna be all good. So for all y'all that's on my thread who I'm done talking about Dion until it's time to talk about Dion again. Y'all can keep on kick rocks and keep on talking about it. But if y'all thought he's gonna be the HBCU savior, sorry for you, because you need to learn how the business runs. And I'm done, and I'm talking about it. Hey man, I appreciate y'all, man. Let me see if I can get my closers right today. Boom. Bye.